Okay. All right. So we're going to build on what we talked about last week. Colin was the only one who was here. But basically, we talked about routines and habits. I'm going to stand a little further this way so it's not as loud. We talked about routines and habits and like the never-ending eagerness to, or no, we talked about routines and habits mainly was the main thing that we talked about. But anyway, let's go. All right. So we're kind of building on routines and habits, not just talking about how having routines is important, but also like how we apply them in our actual life. Okay. So like, what do they actually look like? How do they actually work for us? So the most tangible way for you guys to actually understand that is to start bookending your days. This is a big recommendation that I have for anybody. Okay. Like if you aren't fully bought in on like, habits, like being intentional about your habits or developing routines for yourself in your daily life, just start bookending your days. So the way that you do that is you basically adjust, you have a nighttime routine and a morning routine, okay? And there's a thing called habit stacking that basically is your hardwiring your habit loop that happens in your head so that anybody, whether or not you know that this is happening or not, you're going to have a trigger. You're going to have a trigger. Oh, I wrote it down. You'll have a trigger, a routine, and then a reward, right? And if that reward is worth it, then you'll keep going. If it's not, then there's no reason for you to develop that habit or develop that routine. These can be for good things. These can be for bad things, right? A lot of the times, specifically in baseball, you see that's the whole reason people get addicted to nicotine is because, okay, hey, you have this thing that you do. It makes your brain feel good, so then you want to do it again, right? And then next thing you know, you're addicted to nicotine. That's a typical thing that we see in baseball, right? So, but anyway, the same thing is true with anything that we do in life. But we can use that to develop beneficial morning and evening routines. For example, one that I've done before is like remembering to, okay, hey, after I brush my teeth, I'm off my phone. Okay, so the trigger of me brushing my teeth reminds me that I'm done with my phone for the day. All right, so if I did want to stay on my phone, I'm not going to brush my teeth yet. Right, and I'm not going to go to bed before I brush my teeth. You understand what I mean? So as soon as I'm getting ready to go to bed, I'll put my phone on the or I'll brush my teeth. That'll remind me to put my phone on the charger, which it's in my room, but it's not next to my bed, kind of thing. And then I can read, or I can listen to a podcast or whatever. But I'm not going to be on my phone anymore. Does that make sense? That's a good development or routine. The same thing is true with in the mornings, making yourself efficient. So the alarm goes off, obviously you get up. What's the first thing you're going to do? Is it going to be meditate? Is it going to be, read? A lot of people like to read scripture in the mornings if that's your thing, right? So whatever you want to do, you immediately do it. And the alarm is not only waking you up, but it's reminding you now it's my turn to go do X, Y, Z. You doing that thing reminds you of the next thing you're supposed to do, which is, okay, hey, after I'm done with this, I'm going to turn the coffee machine on. And then turning the coffee machine on reminds me that I got to pack my lunch, right? Then all of a sudden we're taking care of our nutrition, we're taking care of all those kind of things, but we're basically intentionally developing a routine that builds upon itself. Does that make sense? And if you do that, you're really going to be able to see how how intentionally developing your habits and your routines can build off of one another, and you can create your entire life that way. Does that make sense? Okay. So going into the topic for today, the topic today is actually time management and organization. So one of the things that I've seen in the majority of the people that I've worked with who have been elite performers is they have an elite control of their day, right? Their day is extremely planned out. Their day is extremely intentional. It may not be the most strict thing in the world, but they've thought it through, right? They don't just willy-nilly accidentally like, hey, what am I doing today? No, they know. Does that make sense? So, like, for example, with the bookending your days, you want to habit stack. You want to start small. You want to individualize to yourself, and you want to, or you want to write it down in a daily checklist for yourself, okay? But I'll come back to that in a bit. So with the time management, we want our days to be organized and as automated as possible because that's going to breed consistency, right? At the end of the day, I've talked about it before, most in baseball and in life, you being consistent is much more valuable than you being extremely talented occasionally. Does that make sense? Like who you're going to be on a daily basis is why you get promotions at your job. It's not going to be because, oh, hey, he worked really hard for that 1 week right there. You understand what I mean? Like, that's not going to get you that next step. Same thing's true in baseball, right? If you're good, if you're streaky, you go 4 for 4 one day, they don't care if every other day you go 0 for 4, right? So with that, we need to make our days consistent if we want to perform consistently. Does that make sense? That's just common sense, right? So with this, with being organized and having your day be automated because you planned it out beforehand, it allows you to combat decision fatigue. All right, like think of how many decisions you have to make on a daily basis, whether it's how you're going to spend your time, what you're going to wear, X, Y, Z, all those kind of things. The more of those decisions we can take care of before they arise, the easier it is. Like for example, I know that I'm going to wear like one of 3 things to work. Like I don't look at my whole closet and be like, well, I have 50 options. You know what I mean? Every day in the morning, I'm like, I know I'm wearing one of these black shirts, an Adapt shirt, or I have this other shirt that I like to wear sometimes. But those are the 3 options. Those are the only 3 things I wear to work. Very rarely do I change it, okay? And that just makes it easier for me to go through my morning, right? It's less stressful. There's less decisions to be made. Just think about all of a sudden, you two have been in school before, but you're about to go to school. Think of how many more decisions you're going to have to make on your own compared to the ones that your parents have made for you your entire high school career, right? All of a sudden, you need to figure out how you're going to spend your Friday nights. You're going to figure out how you need to spend your Saturdays. Hey, am I going to do my homework right now, or am I going to put it off, right? There's not going to be anybody watching over you anymore, so you have to prioritize making those decisions beforehand, not making it constantly like flip of a coin, right? Because who knows who you're going to end up being if that's how you go about your life. Does that make sense? So with that, we want to plan and prepare ahead as often as we possibly can, okay? There's some things that we can't do, but we have to be flexible at times, but we can control the things that we can control, right? Not only in baseball, not only in our sport, but also in life, right? And make sure that those are taken care of so that we're going the direction that we want to go, okay? This is the thing that I've seen kind of make or break a lot of people in their careers is how well do they spend their time, right? How much time are they actually working towards where they want to go, right? Or are they just letting life happen to them, right? Are they happening to life? Are they doing everything intentionally, or are they just going about it being like, whatever, okay? I want you guys to be intentional about how you go about things, okay? So with that, one of the most important strategies that I've seen do with this is MITs. So most important things. Those are your priorities for the day, right? You'll never have more than 3, right? You can have multiple categories, but never more than 3 categories either, okay? So for example, a lot of the time what I would like to do instead of a to-do list of like, oh, hey, I have a full to-do list. I'm writing my full to-do list on my agenda every single day. I'm just saying the 3 most important things for the day, I'm writing those down, right? And I'm saying I'm accomplishing these 3 things today, or I'm making these steps towards these things today, okay? That's going to allow you to simplify stuff, but it's also going to allow you to make sure that you're going in the correct direction. Does that make sense? So, and this is physically writing it down. So like you might have like school goals, right? The most important things that you have to do for your homework for school when you go back. And also your most important things that you want to do for your individual development outside of your team, right? So maybe it's, hey, you want to read more, you want to spend a little bit of extra time doing core work, and you want to make sure that you prioritize eating well. Right, those are your MITs for the day on your personal development. In addition to that, you also have 3 MITs or 1 to 3 MITs for schoolwork as well. Like, hey, I need to start that essay. I need to, outline that presentation, and I need to do X, Y, Z. Right? That's as simple as it is, but that's a really easy way for you to wake up. Or I would recommend doing it before you go to bed the night before. Of saying tomorrow, these are my most important things. Right? That in tune with your morning routines and evening routines is going to really help you structure and organize your days, okay? Like, for example, you can make writing your MITs be part of your evening routine. Does that make sense? Okay. So, if you want to go to the next step with that, there's also a 168-hour plan. So, you know how long 168 hours is? It's a week. Yep, that's exactly how long that we have in a given week. Okay, but so if you want to get strict with it and actually line out every single thing that you're going to do for every single minute for the entire week, you can do that as well. I've seen very few people be successful doing that because it's a lot, right? Me personally, if I do that, I know that I'm just going to feel like a failure if I don't stick to it perfectly, so I don't do that. But that's something, if you are that type of person, if you do really, really like being that structured, that's something I would recommend for you, okay? But with that, with all of this, it's literally just being intentional about your routines because you're creating them whether you know it or not. And then how do we use those in order to get the most out of our days, right? Because you talk about stacking days upon days upon days, but it's what are we actually spending our time doing that? Does that make sense? Okay? We have to be extremely intentional in making sure that we're going the direction that we want to go. But the biggest thing that I would recommend you guys start doing is a daily checklist of some sort. Okay, so I've seen this be just a pen and paper. I've seen this be, there's an app called Habit Share that does a really good job, but basically you can share it with your friends and then they hold you accountable. You tell them basically, did I do XYZ today, yes or no? And you go through it. You have like however many habits you want to pick and your friends can hold you accountable. You can add me on there. I'm on there. I have a couple people that I work with that I'm like, hey man, you said that you wanted to read and you haven't read for a week and a half. You said you wanted to do some running and you haven't ran for a week and a half. What's going on? And it allows other people to hold you accountable. And it allows you to do that. But a daily checklist can look like a bunch of different things. It can look like that. It can look like a to-do list on your phone. That's what I use. I have an app called Minimalist, or MNM List, and it's basically just a to-do list on your phone. It's super simple. You type it in. And then so if somebody tells me, hey, can you do this for me? Hey, I have pictures all the time are like, hey, can you send me video? I'm never going to remember, like when I'm done watching bullpens to send them video. So I'm like, yeah. And so I write down on the app real quick, send so-and-so video. And then when I am sitting at work, I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to be doing? I look at that list. I'm like, okay, perfect. Right, that's my daily checklist. The night before, I'm like, hey, what do I need to accomplish tomorrow? I put it on that. Right, you can use that. You can write that down. You can use that as on an app. You can do the Habit Share. You can do whatever. But I highly recommend you start working on a daily checklist. Okay, because you're going to be much more intentional about your days. You're going to be much more intentional about your life if it's planned. All right. I'm not saying you got to plan every minute of every day, but you can if you want to. Right. But I do highly recommend, especially as you guys are developing into young adults, developing into figuring out who you want to be. This is extremely valuable. This is something that I wish somebody pushed me and told me to do a lot earlier on. Because I'm much more structured and much more organized now and much more intentional about the way that I live my life than I was when I was in college. Because I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. Right? I was just guessing. Does that make sense? Okay. That's all I got for you today. So, be intentional about your habits. Okay? Book into your day's question. Go ahead. Okay. Okay. It reminds you. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Those are your 5 things. I like that a lot. Yeah. I like that a bunch. Yeah, you got to do XYZ. Yeah. That's awesome. That's a great way to do it. Yeah. Well, and the other thing that I've seen a lot of people do is they put sticky notes on their mirror, right? Whether it's with motivational words or things they need to remember to do or mantras that they need to remind themselves consistently of, or, the 5 most important things in their life right then, right? Put it on the mirror. Put it somewhere where you're going to see it, right? There's actually a concept of advertising to yourself, which I really like that idea. Like I purposely have like a desktop thing on anytime that I go to Chrome on my laptop, a motivational quote pops up immediately. And I'm like, I like that because it's reminding me consistently every single day I see it. Okay, hey, think about whatever that is, right? So you can advertise to yourself as well. I like that a lot. So, yep. That's all I got for you, fellas. I appreciate you listening.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.